Brightwind puts Robin at T0.5, which is the same level of a Ruan Mei and Sparkle. And I'm not 100% sure if I can agree on. Let me preface this. I don't say Brightwind is doing a bad job or that their perception of this is warped by any means. Like, when we look in a moment in their criteria and stuff, we will see also like this can make sense the way it's set up. But I'm not sure if it does reflect the player reality. So that's like my criticism I do have with that. And the case of Robin really stretches like these criteria, but you will understand in a second. So let's look at the ratings description here. So what they say here for Apex characters is, for T0 and T0.5, characters in this bracket are the cream of the top crop. They can do outrageous amount of damage, provide massive buffs or debuffs, or keep the team alive no matter what the enemies throws at them. They simply can achieve the best, most consistent and accessible results in the best teams, allowing you to easily clear MOC and pure fiction. And I think we will need to come back at what they just said here later on. And then for the criteria, they go on and say like for an amplifier, the rating is influenced based on the damage amplification abilities of the character and the utility they provide to the team. So they will have, in this regard, compare individual amplifiers by the ability, how well they can boost their teams to the stratosphere. Interestingly, they have also here other criteria like flexibility, investment, and utility. It's clear when we talk about investment that some characters who are weaker might need more investment to get there and stuff. For flexibility, this is also interesting. How the character's kit functions against various enemy types, amount of enemies, and the ability to perform when not fighting against enemies vulnerable to the element. There's no word about flexibility in a sense of how well a character meshes with certain teams and in how many of these. And it kind of makes sense that they left this part out because that could like clash with their criteria for a tier 0 unit or tier 0.5. So that's that. And this is the reason why I mean it's an extreme case, because Robin stretches it exactly with this point. She is basically only premier for the FUA teams and maybe to some degree also like to Kafka Black Swan team. And every other teams, when you ask like most guide creators, they will say, yeah, she works, but they don't go deeper like how well, to be honest. So let's look at what they bring to the table. Like for Robin, we have here 50% damage increase on the skill, advanced forwards, and a massive attack buff of 1000 to 1400, which is crazy. 20% crit damage to the team, and also 25% increase to the crit damage portion of FUA teams during her ultimate. For Ruan Mei, she deals 68% damage increase on her skill if you consider Ascension 6. And then 50% weakness break efficiency increase when you pull her ultimate, 30% all type pen, delays enemies, and gives also 20% break effect to everyone, and a nice handy 10 speed for everyone, which is really cool. So both of them do really excellent buffs, and both also like overlap in what they want to do, but they have also like their own specializations. Ruan Mei can very well access their ultimate, and her ability to access her perks is nowhere near as much restricted as that of Robin. So there is a major difference. And in my opinion, it's exactly this energy restriction which pushes her the most to FUA teams, not like her Ascension passive with 25% crit damage, blah, blah, blah. This is not it. It's literally the energy constraints that do that. But yeah, if we look this in practice, like let's say we take the worst case scenario of Robin. Let's say we are interested in how does she perform at her worst, like not worst like in sense of we don't put any items on her. That's not what I mean. But let's say we have 3 cycle MOC 12, yeah? And then we have 3 targets and we give her her F2P weapon, which is very easy accessible. A lot of players will put it on her, but the problem with that weapon is it doesn't help her with energy generation. So we will have that weapon and just an energy rope and then call it a day with that setup. And also we do not consider ultimate extensions, as they also require you to kill that enemy wave in time, which in pure fiction is fairly easy, but in MOC, yeah, it can get iffy. You can get it, you can get it not. So we for this worst case scenario, we leave it out. And in this part, when we have the worst case scenario, when we look at her premier team of Dr. Ratio and Topaz, even in that case scenario where she can only pull off a single burst in 3 cycles, with that worst case, she still outperforms Ruan Mei, which is really cool. It's not by super much, but it is there. Now, let's say you fix that situation where you give an energy recharge weapon to her, or we take the least incremental step and put a phone whack on that. Now you can access a second burst during that 3 cycle, and now you get from 1.6 million to 2.1 million damage, making that meme team of Topaz and Dr. Ratio suddenly very competitive versus Jingliu versus Imbibe Lune. So that's why she is so hyped, at least in this regard. So that's really cool, you know. And why I'm saying like 3 cycle, because here's the thing. Of course, 5 cycles is the minimum bare goal, so you get your 3 stars in the MOC. However, 5 cycling now means like tomorrow you won't. You just won't get it. Because the game keeps advancing, it gets harder and harder, so you're not safe at 5 cycles, you won't clear higher. And I think most people who actually go into the MOC are ambitious and want to get higher, or like make the clear times lower. So it doesn't mean everybody wants to 0 cycle, but at least they want to comfortably 3 cycle without getting headage. I think this is it. People want to clear their rewards and they don't want to sweat for that too much. So at least I think this is where you can like maybe put a lot of the players, and maybe there are also a few among them who really wants to shorten the times and stuff. So 3 cycles I feel like is the middle, you know. Now with all that being said, it's the energy constraints, like I said, that push Robin into full, you know. So every other team will just deal way less attacks. Way less attacks means way less energy generation for Robin, because 50% of her energy gets generated by her team. You know, every single attack that they do gives 2 energy to her. So especially during her burst, where she is like just sitting there and singing, it's her team who provides all the energy. So that's really important here. And other teams like Kappa Black Swan and Imbibe Lune, Jingliu, any other team will just deal way less attacks than the Ratio and Topaz, yeah? And Topaz really deals a shit ton of attacks. Like, this is clear why this team is the premier team. But outside of that, you will fall much easier into this 1 burst scenario with any other team. That's the reason why they are not clearly recommended. Like, you still get like Black Swan and Kafka, because in that team, even with a single burst in 3 cycles, she still pulls off 90% of Ruan Mei's performance, which is really nice. And if you can like fix that energy issue, let's say you add your energy recharge weapon, maybe you add the foam whack, and now you get the 2 bursts within 3 cycles. Now that's the point where you would actually either pull even or even ahead, especially if you consider any type of ultimate extensions you get on top. That can definitely shift the favor now for Robin, which is huge. This is the reason why this team is a little bit on the side also promoted, you know, besides her premier team. Now what about Imbibe Lune? So Imbibe Lune, she can actually pull off almost 90% of Ruan Mei's performance in an Imbibe Lune team. Now let's look at Imbibe Lune and Jingliu, for example. Are these teams you could put Robin in and perform? For Imbibe Lune, I can say a lot more yes, even though it's a hyper carry team and you have literally him, you know, then when you play it with Sparkle, Sparkle will barely attack anybody. And who is the healer or the sustain? That would be Luocha. So he will also attack a little bit. So, and no, if you do his skill, yes, you put in 3 skill points, but sadly it doesn't count 3 times to the energy generation of Robin. Sadly it doesn't. But still, you can, even with a single burst, almost land 90% of Ruan Mei performance, which I don't consider as too bad. If you get like 2 bursts off with investing her energy, then you could land above that. So that's also a potential. Now, why does it make sense? Imbibe Lune is filled to the brim with damage percentage, but lacks some attacks. So she provides in spades for him, like so exactly what he needs. For Jingliu on the other side, she already provides her own attack, about 2k from her talent. Like, it helps her still, but it's just way less performant, and therefore, even when you get 2 bursts off in a Jingliu team, you still do not reach Ruan Mei's performance, and it costs you quite some hoops to get there, even to do like the 2 bursts. So the general gist here is yes, you can achieve performance that rivals that of Ruan Mei, but you have to do quite a lot more hoops to get there. Now, when we go back to the description of the ratings, it says they simply can achieve the best, most consistent accessible results in the best teams, allowing you to easily clear MOC and pure fiction. And when we look at this wording, in their best teams, you can already see this is kind of specifically written for Robin's case, because she only fulfills that description for T0 in her only single best team. You have Dr. Ratio, Topaz. And that's kind of it. This is exactly the reason why this wording is there. And in my opinion, it's a very limited view. I mean, yeah, they can leave it like this and it's correct in this very narrow field, but it also is a kind of irritating, you know, so it just doesn't feel right, because like a major point of a unit for me or for most players is also in how many units, how many teams can you use, especially when we talk about supports, you know, you want some certain flexibility. For Horrorverse, it's a great move because they can now sell more units. This is like the main draw for them to specialize them so hard. And in gameplay, yes, it adds also, like when you don't have like 10 variations of Bennett who all do the same, you know, we kind of don't want this too. But still, like when you do this type of ratings, I would rather see a more wider lens on that, but then end up with, you know, Robin. Even if you leave her at that tier, I would put Ruan Mei above her. Maybe Sparkle, I would say, can stay there, but at least we'll put Ruan Mei up on top, because she is way more reliable, more consistent in accessing her full power in so many teams, many more than Robin is. So, and sadly this doesn't count. This is the reason why they can't put them on the same level. But if you would consider that, she would be above that. So that's that. But you know what? I will leave the rest for you to discuss in the comments. I would really like to hear your opinions on that matter. If you think this is justified or not. Well, this has been NeoStar Impact. See you next time. Peace.